Hi, my name is Mark Spiecker. I'm the CEO at Sharklet Technologies. So at Sharklet Technologies, we use textures inspired by shark skin to control bacteria on surfaces. We don't use chemicals, don't use antibiotics, no heavy metals. It's really just the shape of the surface that microorganisms have trouble attaching to. So Sharklet Technologies is part of the bioscience industry. Bioscience is one of the advanced industries that's been identified by the state of Colorado. We're represented by 600 companies and about 27,000 people. It's one of the fastest growing industries not only in Colorado but in the country. At Sharklet Technologies, we take our proprietary textures and we apply them to different kinds of medical devices as well as consumer products. Every day that we're looking to do that, we're doing something innovative that nobody's done before. In the past, everyone's always used chemicals or antibiotics or heavy metals to be able to keep bacteria from growing on these types of surfaces and improve the health of a patient. We're just using texture. So every day we're confronted with a new innovation challenge to figure out how to adapt our texture for a certain bug that we're trying to control or a certain device that we're looking to make. At Sharklet Technologies, we find our inspiration in nature. Our founder actually identified the technology by looking at sharks in the ocean and realizing that sharks violate a rule of the ocean, which is that things that go fast in the water stay nice and clean, where things that go slow in the water get fouled with algae and barnacles and other kinds of growth. Sharks go slow, but for some reason stay clean. And in the field of biomimicry, people are constantly trying to look to nature to try to solve the problems that we're addressing right now. Our founder, Dr. Brennan, was able to solve that through looking at nature and looking at how the shark had figured out a way to resist algae and barnacles, and then apply that to using those same textures to reduce bacteria on surfaces. So in the late 90s, there was a professor at the University of Florida that was experimenting with this idea of what he called engineered roughness. Could he rough up or scratch up a surface and affect the way microorganisms would attach to that? The United States Navy thought that was an interesting idea and funded him to see if he could create textures to go on the bottom of their boats to keep algae and barnacles from attaching. So along the way, he became inspired by the skin of sharks. He was actually in Pearl Harbor watching these huge submarines come in from the ocean, and they were covered in all kinds of algae and barnacles, and he made a comment, something to the effect of, "Man, that looks like a big old whale." And he was talking to a marine biologist who looked back at him and said, well, you know, everything in the water that moves slowly, like a submarine or like a whale, gets fouled with algae and barnacles. And the professor asked him, he's like, well, is there anything that doesn't do that? And the marine biologist said, well, sharks don't do that. And nobody knows why. They've been trying to figure it out for years. So as a material scientist, he always looked for the physical or for the surface as the reason why these things happen, as opposed to chemicals or electrical charges. So he started to investigate that, and in looking at the shape of their skin, he saw these mathematical and physical properties in the skin that aligned with the models that he was working on for engineered roughness and for textures for the bottom of these Navy boats. And there were a lot of similarities that were there. So he took the best parts of the shark skin, incorporated it into his models, and created our Sharklet Technologies pattern that we work with today. The greatest challenge that we face at Sharklet is that we're doing something that nobody has ever done before. And we really do believe we have a game-changing technology, utilizing textures to control microorganisms on surfaces. The first challenge that we've had is to prove that we can actually do that, to create tests that show that our textures actually do decrease bacteria on surfaces, and then to test those in people to show that we can reduce infections. The second big challenge we've had is manufacturing. The only industry that uses textures of the size or the scale that we use to put on our surfaces is the computer microchip industry. And in that industry, they use $1 billion machine to make something that big over and over and over again. We're trying to take those textures, instead of making them that big, make them this big. And not only make them this big, they make them three-dimensional and apply them to things that we use every day. So our biggest challenge is really being able to take this new technology, test it, make it, and get it out into the marketplace. We think the future's bright at Sharklet Technologies. We're really excited about what we're doing. We're doing something that nobody has ever done before. And if we can show that we can control bacteria using these textures, we really think that we can change the way that people interact with surfaces and make this world a healthier, better place.